Alrighty, guys, we're recording. Appreciate you being on here. We're going to talk a little bit of building some team offense. We got a pretty good panelist here. Two guys that I know personally, and a newbie that I'm really excited to learn from here. We got Jose from Bethune, CJ from, how do you pronounce it?
Biola University.
I didn't want to screw it up. And then Derek from Eastern Illinois. So getting right into it, I know the focus, and I mentioned it to you guys earlier, for building a team offense, it's kind of went a little bit away from, team and cookie cutter. It's really broken down to the individual, and I get that. But I want to hear kind of your guys' offensive philosophies as a whole and start to dive in what you think it takes to build a winning offense, right? So, Jose, if you don't mind starting off, what's your overall offensive philosophy?
So obviously it's a broad term, but I would say that, our number one goal is to get as many guys into scoring position as possible. That is our main focus. Obviously under that falls a lot of categories, whether it be playing small ball, whether it be, trying to have a gap-to-gap approach through the lineup. But here, at Bethune, we want to be aggressive in our zone. Number one, we want to eliminate the chasing pitches out of our zone, and then we want to compete with two strikes. I think the biggest thing is being a competitor in the box. That's something that obviously starts in the fall. And instilling that confidence in your hitters, getting to know your hitter, top to bottom. I think we have it a little bit easier than the professional level, just because at the professional level, you're dealing with so many hitters throughout the entire organization. We have the luxury of having 15 to 20 position players, where we can establish that relationship. We can establish that culture, and have the hitter have the confidence in us. And then that's when we, apply our philosophy. I don't like playing small ball, and especially here in Florida. I like seeing our hitters hit. I think our head coach is the same way. But at the same time, I think you got to identify your hitters. If you don't have a team that is going to hit for power, then you got to make adjustments to your philosophy. Unfortunately, I don't like to bunt early, but I don't have bangers 1 through 9. So I think that obviously I need to attack, situational hitting a lot more, and I love situational hitting, hitting behind guys. But I'm big on looking away, adjusting in. I think there's a limited amount of arms in Division I baseball across the country that can pound inside, on the black 3 times in a row. So, I tell our guys, look away, adjust in, and fight your butt off. With 2 strikes, have the confidence to get to 2 strikes. But if you get a pitch in your zone, attack it and don't miss it. Make some damage.
Sure. And Jose, I want to go back to your point about identifying, the talent that you have on your team and in your individuals, right? At the college level, we have the opportunity to recruit our players, right, and bring in guys that might fit our mold. You mentioned not really being a small ball type of guy. I'd imagine when you're going out recruiting, you're not looking for, you're probably not impressed by the guy that can bunt a little bit, right? You want to bring some bangers. It's going to be different, though, from the youth level all the way up. Even at the pro level, those guys, they're scouting and probably still bringing in to fit their organizational mold. But, I still want to hit kind of and cover, all levels, not just kind of sticking to the college level. So I thought that was a really good point that you brought up, especially for, if there is going to be any high school coaches that listen into this afterwards, even though you're you might be stuck in your ways and, you love the long ball, you gotta go with what you have. Right. So,
absolutely.
CJ, anything you'd like to add to that?
Actually, that was awesome. We're very similar in my beliefs. I saw something the other day, which I think I'm going to start adding in. But I like the idea of getting guys on base and getting them closer to home as soon as possible. which kind of rolls right in line with let's get to scoring position as many times and as quick as we can. And for us, we try and be the most dynamic we can be, so everybody 1 through 20 in our hitters can all put down a bunt. We don't do it very often, but if the need was there, or just the ability to like show drag, bring an infield in, and then we're going to go try and hit it down their throats. I'm pretty sure our shortstop bunts it foul on purpose 9 times out of 10, just so he can go back up and swing, which I'm not mad at him. Let's go drive doubles. But yeah, and I like that. And a big thing too for us is winning the freebie war, which we can get to a little bit later on. But I know, Pac, that was a big thing when we worked together. The team who has more more runs than hits is often the team that wins a lot of ball games, and that's a big thing for us too. But I think that I pretty much fall in line with everything that's been said so far. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. It was crazy. There was almost a streak there of 5 games in a row when we worked together at Bucknell, where we looked up at the scoreboard, and whether we won or lost, like we looked up, and the team that had like less hits but had more runs and hits were like, they just won the game. And it's like, how did that happen? And now, I kind of pay attention to that after every game. I just look up to the scoreboard real quick, and I'm like, yeah, there's another one of those games where they had more runs and hits. And, at college, you probably see it more than you do the pro level.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure at high school, and even youth, you probably see it even more. So, Derek, What about you, man? Anything you'd like to add to this?
These guys are crushing it. I'm basically the same as both of them. For me, it's be dynamic and do damage. I've coached in the northern half of the country for my whole career. And so we kind of we have to be able to do more just because of different elements that we're dealing with. A lot of it's weather. For the first half of our season, you're going to have a wind that's most likely blowing in. It's going to be cold until about this time of the year. It starts to warm up on you. Which is good. So having those big boppers sometimes don't play up until now. So you got to find ways to do other things. And kind of like Jose, like I'm not huge into the small ball. I'd rather not give up outs. I think it's good to get dirt ball reads. Kind of going into a base running spiel here. It's good to get dirt ball reads. I think it's good to run when you can. And then just constantly put pressure on the other team. I kind of got it broken down into 3 things. Like, one, we want to play offensively. I think it's real easy to become passive, whether that's in the box, you're kind of reactive when you're hitting. And it's easy when you're struggling, when you're failing a little bit to get on the defensive side of things. And then especially as a base running group, we're going to try to be super offensive and continue to put pressure on the other team. And then the second thing is, we want to make it difficult on the pitcher. You kind of touched on it a little bit. It's college arms. We don't want to give them too much credit. You see guys in the big leagues that are missing spots quite frequently. And Jose said you don't want to chase outside the zone. That's one thing that they're big on at Bethune Cookman there. And that's the same for us too. We joke with our pitching guy quite a bit. If you don't swing the bat, there's like a 20 to 25% chance that you get on base if you just don't swing the whole time. It's crazy. So that's one thing that we preach a lot. And then the third thing is just play offense for the team. You got to know who you are, and then you got to really, really get good at, what you can do. Sometimes if we have our 3-hole up, he might not be good at bunting. Maybe playing for the team's hitting a double in the gap. Maybe the 8-hole it is bunting. It's different things. So these guys crushed it though. I just try to add a little bit on there, but yeah, I think we're all on the same page here.
Yeah. We kind of hit it on a couple things that I want to go back to. You guys have mentioned things from applying pressure, doing damage, and then CJ mentioned, towards the lines of applying pressure. CJ, kind of go into detail. I think you're coaching summer baseball, and you might have set like the stolen base record. Maybe go into a little bit more detail on how you apply pressure.
Sure. Yeah, it was actually pretty fun. I coached in the NYCBL as a head guy for the Hornell Dodgers, and I told them, I already don't think that catchers at any level are really that good. until you reach the top schools. And especially we see it in our Division II conference that you don't get those guys that are just real quick out of glove and can make consistent throws on the bag. So we're going to try and be aggressive on dirt ball reads, stolen bases, and really put the pressure on. So we started joking around. The very first meeting I had said, hey, we're going to try and steal, 50 bags, maybe 100. Heck, let's go for 200. Our first game, we end up with 6 stolen bases, and all of a sudden in the dugout, you get this road to 200 yell that comes from it. We end up stealing like 204 bags on the summer, which was, it spoke to like the level that we were playing at, but it was a blast. And I've carried that aggression everywhere that I've gone, and we make it an integral part of practice every single day. And it's been there's been some really good positive affirmation thrown my way from some really good base stealing coaches I've talked to recently that say it really is about doing that stuff every day. So we block out 15 to 20 minutes to go over whether it's our technique or just down to the angles that we get around bases. So we want to be not only the fastest on the base paths, but if you're not going to be the fastest guy, you're going to be the most efficient runner. And that's our tight turns, tight lanes. Tyler, you've seen it. We've put the cones out and we see how close we can get these lanes to the inside of the bag before guys eventually wipe out because they're trying to lean and turn so tightly. And for us, that's led to our slow moving first baseman getting first to third a lot for us. And he ends up being just that much quicker because he understands that he can stay tighter and not have to round bases as far. And then just the overall preaching aggression. So our first few weeks, if you get thrown out trying to steal a base, you get to go back to the base that you came from, because we're just going to say like, hey, this is part of our offense. You're going to fail. You're going to get thrown out, and heck, you're going to get picked off. But it's okay because you're doing things inside of what we do. And it almost seems, funny now, but to be playing on the safe side for us is to like not be a part of our offense really, which I really enjoy. And our head coach has given me a lot of autonomy and just kind of, we're going to get after it. And we struggled early. We came in late as a staff this year, but then towards the back half of the year, we were stealing at like a 96% clip in our last like 20 bags. So that's a big part for us. And it creates more pickoffs from pitchers, which then, pitchers at any level, right? Like if they're thinking about the guy at first base, it distracts them from what they're trying to do. We end up getting a lot more fastballs, a lot more pitches get left up in the zone because they end up rushing to the plate, or a pickoff ends up down the right field line and we're going first to third on that. So that whole thing for us has just created chaos and pressure, and we thrive in that and get excited about it.
I'm glad you hit on that, because I was actually going to follow up with, what does that do to the defense, right? And you mentioned a few. I remember you also talking about like breaking balls don't become as sharp too, and that's a big one, right? It's tough to hit the breaking ball, especially at the college level. And whenever we can, make it a hanger, and that's usually what we got when we were applying pressure. Pitchers started hanging breaking balls, and your offense just opens up. Derek, you mentioned doing damage. In your mind, in your eyes, what is that? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I just think it's kind of the same thing as CJ's saying. It's being ultimately like just being as aggressive as possible, but also being smart with it. I was listening to Kevin Seitzer, hitting coach with the Braves the other day, and he said, would you rather do a lot of damage and look silly sometimes, or would you rather do no damage and never look silly? And I thought that was a great way to put it. For him, obviously, it's a little bit different level. That's the highest level you can get. He's trying to get his hitters and his offense to get through the fear of being embarrassed in front of 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Whether that's getting picked off, getting thrown out, trying to go first to third, whatever. I think it's a lot better to try to do damage and put pressure on them, as opposed to just sitting back and never looking a little silly. Obviously, we don't like when maybe we swing at the 58-foot breaking ball, or we get thrown out by 4 steps, whatever. But it's college baseball. There's a lot of things to a play. For instance, let's say a dirt ball read, like that catcher's got to block it, he's got to get up, he's got to grab it, he's got to make a good throw. There's a lot of pieces to that, and they virtually all have to go right in order for you to be out. So to me, like it's just playing offense offensively. You know, you're going to have that sort of mindset that we're here to basically take it to you, as opposed to sitting back and waiting for something good to happen.
Awesome. Jose, you mentioned competing in the box, right? And being aggressive. Start to hit on those a little bit more. You mentioned a little bit of the two-strike approach. Just hit on that in your overall the mindset at the plate.
Right. So obviously when we go into a game, right, with our scouting reports and with the homework that obviously is our job to do, we kind of have an idea of the type of pitcher we're facing that night. And that's when obviously you break it down to your hitters, and this is kind of the approach that they're going to use against us tonight. So we want to be aggressive early in the count with this pitch, and obviously it's a little bit more individualized with every hitter. But I tell our guys, the first two strikes are yours to do what you got to do, whether it be drive a gap, whether it be work a walk, get hit by pitch, sacrifice bunt, head behind the guy, whatever the case may be. But they have to identify the situation, before they step in the box. And when it comes out to competing, right, I'm a huge guy in that mindset. I love competing, whether it be in practice, whether it be, me versus our pitching guy in a fungo. You're sitting fungo. I want to compete. I want to win. I want to be the best at it. So I try to instill that mindset in our guys. And when we get to two strikes, it's you versus the guy on the mound. Who's gonna let up first? How far are you willing to go to win? Whether it be, choking up, getting up on the plate, lowering your eyesight a little bit, being more short, compact to the zone, those kind of things, right? But I think one of the things that has helped, right, and unfortunately the season got cut short, but going into next year, and there's no secrets here, I think that a lot of coaches out there and a lot of college players, right, see offense as in hitting. Offense equals hitting. And I heard it a few weeks ago where offense is not necessarily hitting, offense is scoring runs. Because at the end of the day, scoring runs wins baseball games. Or you want to score as many runs as you can to help your pitching staff obviously seal the deal. So that's kind of the different mindset that I want to take moving forward, where I want our guys to think that offense is scoring runs, just not necessarily hitting. So with going back to that, getting as many guys in scoring position as possible, it doesn't necessarily mean drive gaps, hit doubles and triples. It can be just get a base hit, but have an aggressive turn, force the defense, put pressure on the defense, maybe an outfielder bobbles the baseball, and you can get that extra 90. So it's not necessarily hit doubles and triples, but more of how can I get to second base, whether it be like CJ made a good point of base running and Derek hit on dirt ball reads. But I think obviously two-strike approach is going to go a long way, because if you go into the box fearless of getting to two strikes and having in the back of your head, I can get to two strike and I can still have success, then that's going to promote more success to see pitches, and eliminate the chase ratio a little bit better.
Awesome. Moving on, guys. We talk about our offensive philosophies. You guys mind sharing how do you guys instill that into your team, right? And I'll give the examples of, do you spend classroom time on it? Do you do situational scrimmages? How do you instill that offensive philosophy of yours into your team and build that team identity, right? Derek, I'll let you start with that one.
Yeah, so I think that starts even before you get your team on campus. Like you already touched on, Tyler, you're obviously going to recruit to your system. Going back a little bit, though, I think it's easier as a coach to kind of change your philosophy to match the group you have. Let's say you're new to that team. It's a lot easier for you to mold just a little bit to them, as opposed to asking all of them to mold to you and your philosophies right away, because you may not have the right guys. And so you're going to be fighting an uphill battle if you try to get a bunch of pieces that don't fit into your system, trying to do that. So I think it starts there. And then once you get guys on campus, I mean, day one, I mean, we're going, and you're going to try to teach them to be fearless. And I like to use on the basis, like, we're going to try to take extra 90s all day, a ball hit through the 6 hole that ends up at the left fielder. We're going to try to run right in his face. And if we get thrown out by 20 feet, well, now we know. I think that's the only way that you can get the fear out of somebody and teach them to play as aggressively as possible, but also learning. If you don't ever try it, you're never going to learn. So then when February does roll around, if you still don't know what you can and cannot do, you're probably not going to be quite as successful. And then also, like, I think you have to try to find a way. This is something I'm still learning. I think you got to try to find a way to make it the player's idea. So if you're trying to get them to maybe change his swing or steal a bag, instead of putting the steal sign on, maybe give him the green light. Find ways to give him different drills to get him to change his swing to where it's his idea. You're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. You got to get them to buy in. And then, as opposed to me just saying, hey, this is the way we're doing it, you got to find a way to do this. You kind of slide in a little different direction and get them to try to make it their idea in their head. And I think that's how you ultimately get your point across.
Awesome. Just going back real quick, I love the two kind of highlight those two things that you said was recruit to your system, right? And we have that luxury at the college level. Sure. And then, and this goes for all levels. It's easier for us to mold to 35 other guys than for those 35 other guys to mold towards us. So I love those two, phrases that you mentioned. Jose, what about you, man?
I definitely agree with what Derek said there, and I think it like he said, it starts with before fall ball starts, with how you are talking to those guys if they come to the office. I love talking with guys in the office just to get their point of view. How do they view this? How do they view that? That way it gives me a better understanding of what's going through their head. And when it comes down to us explaining our offensive philosophy to them, it's basically, I tell myself, how can I be as simple as I can while telling them the necessary information? And then that goes into individuals, and then obviously BP rounds. We utilize BP rounds a lot, whether it be a full day of what we hit on the field, but all we're doing is working on our hit and runs, and it'll be strictly hit and run day on the field. If we want to make it competitive, then we'll have our pitching guy, get on the bump a little bit, move the L screen back, and we'll make it a competitive scrimmage, like you mentioned, Tyler. And that's another way of, getting them a little bit into that competitive mindset, game-like reps, kind of buying into that team philosophy, team offense. This is what we're trying to do. But I think it's definitely in that at least us in college, where we have that individual segment with them, which is whether it be 2 to 3 weeks before team practice starts. I think we utilize that time to our advantage, or we need to, because those small groups where you have 3 or 4 hitters at a time, that's when you can actually get involved real deep with them, and kind of make that impact with them, on a one-on-one basis, than when you have 20 guys and you're trying to get a message across and it's not the same. There's more importance when it's kind of a small group setting.
Tyler, you care if I butt in real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Derek.
So just going off what Jose said right there, I think it's a really good idea to bring guys in and talk to them individually and get their feel. One thing that made me think of listening to Jason Bell with the Astros. He's talking about having a bunch of different personalities. So if you got 35 guys on your roster, as a coach, we might have to have 35 different personalities to be able to connect with each guy. And obviously that's difficult on our part, but it's easier for us to be able to connect with a guy if you can speak his language and do different things like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. That made me think of that, which I thought was really good from him.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to, chime in about, I think it was one of the Blue Jays hitting coaches mentioned that the first 2 weeks, he does no talking, right? He allows the players to say, what they felt in those swings. He wants to learn their terminology and kind of what their thoughts are. So then when he goes back and, 2 weeks after that, and, he's throwing BP or something, he sees something in his swing, he's going to use their terminology. So they can relate and they know what he's talking about, right? So communication's huge.
Yeah.
CJ, what about you, man?
Yeah, actually, that's really good stuff. The communication piece in small groups is really valuable. We do that a lot during our individual time, like Jose was saying, um, and I actually love that about there could be 35 different personalities, and we need to kind of mold to all of those. And especially nowadays too, where it doesn't seem like you can coach in a one size fits all box. I mean, and I know that I can't at Biola, I can't afford to do that, because if guys just keep walking out of the program, we're going to be in trouble. But for us, as far as getting guys to get into the offensive philosophy, we do a lot of classroom stuff early on, especially through the fall. We have a designated day, and we have a series of videos and stuff that we show kind of the examples of what being successful in our offense leads to, down to how we act when we hit home runs. So the Pac West out here in California is very small fields. In my old age, I can still put a ball over our fence. So that tells you something. So there's going to be a lot of home runs that do get hit, and that's part of our offense. We drive the ball, and that's a big part of our offense. So we preach to guys, hey, like, we know it's a part of the game, but it's more fun to sprint around the bases and get back to the dugout and party with your guys. And that's the goal. We're trying to get back to the dugout and party with the guys as fast as we can. And that we showed them an example of what that looks like, and they loved it. It was a big, they sprint around the bases, they stomp on home plate, and then everyone is waiting for them in the dugout in like this big circle. And then they start dancing, doing whatever college kids do. But I think that a big part of that was like getting them excited about those things from an early stage, and showing videos of hey, us being nuisances on first base. Here's an example of a pitcher picking off, throwing a ball down the line, and we're going first to third, and a dude is screaming when we're up or down 3 or 4 runs. It doesn't matter. They're just so excited that they were able to do something that's part of our offense, that it came out right. And so that's really big for us. And then with the communication part in small groups, I encourage guys, we have a Google Drive with individual folders for each one of our guys. I encourage guys to upload their videos in the off season. 1, for me to kind of see what they're doing, and 2, just so that they have a record in the fall. If something goes wrong, or in the spring, I can look back and see April 7th, I posted this video and I felt really good, and this is what I was thinking at this time. And they can always kind of look back at that. And what it allows us to do is speak the same language. I really am big on guys owning their swings. We have an offensive philosophy, and like we mentioned earlier, hitting and being successful as an offense are 2 kind of different things, right? But I want to make sure that, hey, you guys own your swings. Just let me know what you're thinking about, so that I can talk the same language as you, because getting into the backside or loading or coiling or whatever guys need to think to feel good may not be my version, but we may be saying the same thing. They just need to hear it themselves. So that's kind of touching on that part too.
Awesome, Chad. Well, moving on to, goals and, whether it's stats or data, however you want to say it. What do you guys set game-wise? Is there stuff that you look at that you want your team to do throughout the game that you think is going to lead to them being more successful? CJ, I'll let you start off with that one.
Yeah, freebie war is like our number one thing. We also have a scoring system too. We kind of borrowed it from Long Beach State. I think my friend Cody Atkinson said it best: the best coaches are also the best thieves. So we try and take anything we can, and if we really like it, we'll use it. But they have a scoring system that they use where there's value placed on everything from a dirt ball read to first pitch strikes to all that stuff. We have an offensive and a defensive chart. And sometimes, but rarely, you can lose a game but still win that game, and we'll be fired up by it. But we have a guy that stays on that chart, keeps track of every little thing, and we'll have daily doubles where like a first to third or taking an extra base is worth 2 times the amount of points. And so, on a good day, our score will be 115 to 70. But yeah, so freebie war, winning our game, and then we want to extend at bats. So we keep track of 7+ pitch at bats, how soon we can get into bullpens, and we get really fired up on 2-strike foul balls. The dugout gets really juiced up about it, and so we keep track of all that stuff too. But ultimately, we really preach the freebie war for us, and we keep track of that and tally of that.
CJ, to you, what's the freebie war, right? What would fall under that?
For us, we want to take, so with our base running philosophy, we feel like we're going to create chaos and rush plays. So having less errors than the other team, we're going to take free bases on pass balls, wild pitches, dirt balls, take extra bases on errors. And it's all kind of all encompassing, walks or freebies, hit by pitches. And the hit by pitches one is so tough for kids these days. I feel, and kids these days makes me sound like I'm 1,000, but when I was in junior college, if we got out of the way of a ball, I might not be playing for 2 weeks. Now our guys, they want to hit so bad, it feels like that they jump out of the way. But we build that into the mentality of like, hey, this is important as part of our freebie war. If you get hit by a pitch, you're helping us win that game. And so, yeah, anytime we can take advantage of a mental error or physical error by the other team, we include that into our freebie war.
Jose, what about you, man?
Man, we do 3 things here at Bethune. Number 1 is quality at bats. Huge believer in that. We have a guy in the dugout that tracks them every game, and then obviously I review them after the game. But that's one of the things that I think we definitely want to improve game by game. We go over them after every game, whether it be before practice the next day or before the next game. We do go over them, individually and as a team. Tallied up individually and tallied up as a team. We do go over them. I think that definitely takes a little bit of the selfishness, away from the hitter without them even knowing it. Just because they do want a quality at bat, that makes them maybe take 5+ pitches in an at bat, stuff like that. And then another thing that we started doing this year, thanks to our pitching coach. It wasn't, I'll give all the credit to him. It was not my idea, but he brought it up to our attention, and it definitely went a long way, was having a set goal of having 15+ pitch innings. And that definitely went a long way. We were definitely having early in the season, quick innings, and he brought it up to our attention. So we definitely, made it part of our goals. That's something that we try and focus on, and our head coach keeps track of it, and he reviews it after every game. And so that's one of our goals, is having 15+ pitch innings every game. And when we do that, it's crazy. It all goes hand in hand. When we do have those 15+ pitch innings, we end up scoring or having multiple hits that inning, or something happens. And then the last one, it's having our leadoff guy on, whether it be leading off an inning, leading off a game. But that's a goal, whether it be whoever it's in the lineup, it doesn't matter. But if you're leading off an inning, your job is to get on. And at the end of the day, at the end of the game, we tallied it up, and then obviously we review it, and it's a teaching tool for us as coaches to help them grow, to help them understand these are the results when we're having a good amount of quality at bats per game. These are the results when our leadoff guy gets on, and it's positive results. So that way it makes them buy in a little bit more. So those are the 3 things that we focus on here.
Jose, is there a percentage of leadoff guys on per game that you want?
By the number, I haven't dove into that, percentage wise. I'm guessing it's out there. But me personally, I haven't told our guys like, hey, this is kind of the percentage that we're aiming for.
You're striving.
But that's a good point. Yeah.
Right. You're striving for it each inning, right? If they can do
Right.
that inning, our chances of having a better inning go up, right?
Right. Correct.
Everybody has their thoughts on quality at bats. What's quality at bats for you? I know you mentioned maybe 5+ pitch at bats. What else falls under that category for you?
Situational hitting is one where sack bunt down, sack fly, move a guy over. That falls under that category. A walk, a hard hit pitch. What else? That's about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I assume hit by pitch too. CJ mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm with CJ on that. I tell our guys, if your feet move in the box, I am livid. I try not to. They told me, I coach third base, and they told me, I got to control my emotions when it comes to that. But I am livid when I see guys turning away and jumping out of the way. I'm like you, CJ. When I played, my coach told me, if you don't wear it, you're not playing. So I'm with you on that one, man.
Awesome. Derek, what about you, man?
Yeah, I like the quality at bats. That's not something that we keep here. I do think it gets a little bit tricky. Everybody has a little bit different definition, kind of like you said. And just for an example, if there's a guy on second and you got one of your big time bats up, there's no outs. He hits first pitch 18 hopper to the second baseman. Like, depending on when you're at the game, like I feel like you can do more possibly. So on the sheet, it might be quality. In my mind, maybe we can do that with 2 strikes as opposed to giving in right away. But I did like what Jose said as far as talking about the quality of bat chart the next day. That's something I'm huge on. I think whether you win or lose, meeting with the team and having a big post-game talk a lot of times goes in one ear and out the other, for multiple reasons. Emotions are playing a factor. So I think sometimes it's good to just get away from the yard, come back the next day, what I call after action review, and you kind of just let the guys talk a little bit. They're able to go home. They're thinking about it at some point, whether it's good or bad, and then you can just kind of have that conversation. But getting more into the question that you asked, we don't do anything too crazy here. One thing that we chart is leadoff guys getting on, but then also getting on with 2 outs. And we do that for both our pitchers and our hitters. And we see it a ton, especially at the college level. You can let a guy get on, whether it's a 2-out walk or a 2-out base hit, maybe in a 1-2 count, whatever the situation is. Typically, or the good percentage, like that guy's going to come around and score. It's just one of those things. So that's something that we chart. A couple other things that I've been around at my previous school, we charted just total bases. So we talked about it's all about scoring runs. Like that's the ultimate philosophy is you got to score runs. So for example, if there's a guy on first and you hit a single, he goes first to third. Well, that would be 3 total bases. And we did it for the whole 2018 season. And basically the number we were shooting for as an offense is to get 60 total bases. That equivalated to about 9 runs or so, somewhere in there, 8.7. And then we tried to hold the other team to 30 or less. That was right around 4 to 4.5 runs. It didn't always play out like that. That was at a Division II level where it's a little more offensive heavy. So you have a bunch of 9-4 ball games, I feel like. So, and another thing I really liked is barrels, just tracking barrels. And we don't have the technology. There's some schools out there with hit tracks and different things where you can set it at 95 miles an hour, or anything above that. But like the hitter knows, so you trust him. And we actually had a sheet slapped up in the dugout, and you come in, there's a Sharpie right there, and you put your initials down. And it's basically a competition of things you can control. Once it leaves your bat, you're not in control anymore. So you're trying to obviously be flat, attack gaps, but how hard can you hit it? And you come in and you write your initials down, and you got your competition right there within the game.
Awesome. One last thing, and I was trying to think about the best way to word it. it kind of goes along with your offensive philosophies, but looking at the game, right? We talk about having big innings or scoring first, maybe whether it's playing small ball early on in the game and, trying to shoot for the big inning in the middle part of the game and then, back to small ball, kind of take me through your guys' mindset as the game's going on. And, I know Derek he mentioned he's not really a big small ball guy. So I'd imagine, even in the first inning, you're still going for the big inning. But take me through your mindset throughout the game of how you're going to manage, trying to score runs, right? So, Jose, I'll let you start off with that one.
All right. I definitely think going into the game, right? Me and our head coach, obviously, we try and get on the same page every time. Whether we're swinging it good or we're struggling, right? And I think that's going to dictate how we're going to go about it, right? And obviously the arm we're facing that night or that day. So that has to do a lot with it. If we are struggling with the bat, then we're going to apply pressure early in the game. We're trying to scratch runs early in the game, and that's where small ball comes into play. We have a lot of athleticism in our lineup, and kind of we kind of use it to our advantage. Where if we're trying to put pressure, we might bunt in the first inning, and see what happens, or we might hit and run in the first inning. But I think if we are struggling with the bat, there is no doubt that we are going to play small ball in the first 5 innings. Yeah, without a doubt. But if it's not necessary, that I'm not going to do it in the first inning. But it has come necessary. And this past year, we did it once, and it was necessary and it paid off. But
sure, Derek, and I understand, right? It's going to depend on who you're facing, right? The team that you're facing, but just kind of your general thoughts, right, Derek?
Yeah, so like you said, obviously it depends on who you're facing. There's a bunch of different circumstances that kind of add up. But you got to have a lot of feel with it too. Who's in the box, kind of how the game's going. But for me, I'm going after the big inning. The numbers showed, I don't know the exact number. It's somewhere between like 60 and 65% of the winning team will score more runs in one inning than the losing team does throughout the whole game. So I don't think you necessarily put all your eggs into one basket and just try to have the biggest inning. Like obviously there's something to be said about scoring a run in every inning. They're both extremely deflating. So I think it comes back to how you're going as an offense, who you're playing. The weather's a big thing, like I already mentioned up here. It's all going to kind of play in. But if you can get that big inning, the numbers show that it's going to be really deflating for the other team, and you're most likely going to come out on top.
Yeah. CJ?
This is kind of funny because, and I think Derek can relate to this. When I was on the East Coast, specifically in the Northeast at Bucknell, it felt like we really needed to play small ball most of the time because we've got freezing cold weather, winds, everything is just not in our favor for letting guys just go drive baseballs. Out here, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but we've kind of lived and died by our offense. And I think it was one of the big things that clicked for our guys. The NCAA, when we first cracked the top 10 in Division II, wrote, we like Biola, they're interesting, but we'd like to see them hit instead of slug a little bit more. And we all laughed in our team meeting. We're like, why? Like we've had 2 walk-off home runs this year, and it's kind of it worked out for like living and dying by that. I think we have one guy in our lineup that we would put a bunt down early or late in a game to move a guy over. Other than that, I think our head coach is really just, hey, we're going to build confidence, and we're going to let every single guy feel as if they're the guy at the plate, regardless of the situation. And I kind of love it. I mean, I haven't regretted one decision yet on letting our guys just, hey, even if it's a runner on first, we're down 1 in the 7th. Great, 1 swing from this guy and we could be, up 2, up 1. I'm not a math guy, but yeah. So we've kind of lived and died by our philosophy on that end. And two, we trust our runners. I mean, they're going to try and get to second base by any means necessary. And the more pitches we see, the more opportunities we have to just have a guy in second base. So
Awesome.
And that's that's a really good point by CJ. Where if you have a good runner on first base, right, and you trust them, that can eliminate the bunt situation. You know, if you wanted that run to get into scoring position, and you not necessarily want the guy to play the bunt, and that's where obviously a dirt ball read or straight steal or whatever can eliminate that for you as a coach. Where now you stole that base, you had a good base, dirt ball read, and then now you don't have to bunt necessarily, which I'm a huge fan of that. If I can eliminate the bunt and have that base runner do his job, I'm all for it. But that's a good point by CJ.
Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate it again for taking your time. I'll get it posted on Twitter, retweet it, do whatever you want with it. But again, thank you guys for your time. Appreciate you guys sharing your knowledge. Looking forward to talking to you and keeping that connection going. All right.
Definitely.